Here at Leap Taken, I talk all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. And today we're doing a witchy review. I have my snacks, my edamame beans. It's a good protein situation. Gives you a snacky thing. That's why I like it so much. So I got my books here. I got my water. I've silenced my phones. And I figure since we're talking all things garden, I would sit closer to like where on my plant like this. Not all, but a good amount. So that's why I decided to come out here. So I'm in my dining area. There we go. I had this on a stand, the iPad, but for whatever reason, it wasn't working. Do you guys hear me okay? Let me turn the volume up. There we go. Hopefully you hear me all right. And I figure I wear my very cottage core dress for this topic since we're talking about the green witches. All right, seriously though, have your tea, your beverage of choice ready to go, and let's get into it. But before we go too far into the books, hi, you can hear me? Good, thank you. These are the books that we're going to be talking about. But before I get into it, I do want to talk about my books. So if you are someone who you love keeping a magical record of your journey or magical journey, or you're someone who should be keeping a magical record of your journey, especially if you are a cottage witch or anything in sort of, even honestly, even in the green witch, although, spoiler, something's coming. The Book of Shadows for the Hearth Witch is your friend. You can find this on my website, leaptaken.com. You can also purchase this on Amazon, and I'm also available on a TikTok shop for these. Then we have the Hoodoo Grimoire, which is actually very popular over on TikTok right now. The Hoodoo Grimoire Book of Shadows is your friend. This is a practice where there's nothing else on the market like this. So with all of my Book of Shadows, just understand, I start you off. I give you the facts. A lot of people struggle with how to get started. This is where I come in. This is where these 3 books come in. And by the way, you're not committed to either one. You can try them all. The Book of Shadows for the Love Witch, same thing. You get upfront content. The rest of the books all contain blank pages. They're all very different, the way they're designed, the blank pages and so forth. And obviously, there's no real overlap with these. It's giving very specific details of information. The Book of Shadows for the Love Witch, I've had people come back and tell me that they feel like this book is basically an act of self-care. It's affirming. It's something for you. It's not about love, which to attract love in your life from some random guy or trick some random woman into falling in love with you. I mean, it can, but the upfront content that I provide, it goes beyond that. It's about you, the love witch. The Hoodoo Grimoire saying, listen, if you need to do some hoodoo on somebody, that's on you, but I got you. Thank you. Thank you, Sunflower Thistle. Book of Shadows for the Hearth Witch is going to get you together. It's going to get your home. For those of us, a lot of people are working folk magic, and I'm just going to put this under the umbrella of folk magic. This is the one. This is the one for you. So again, now all of my books are available on my website, leaptaken.com. You can also purchase these books on the TikTok shop, and of course, they're still Amazon. And this is the back, if you were curious, of all the books. That's me. Okay. Let's get into these books. Let's get into the review. I'm trying to keep the live chat going. The only thing when I'm on here, I realize it doesn't keep it. Maybe it'll stay this time. I don't know. We'll see. Anyhow, I'm going to start with, there's annotation, there's notes. The Modern Witchcraft Guide to Fairies, your complete guide to the magic of the Fae by Sky Alexander. If you've read the series, The Modern Witchcraft Guide 2, you've probably come across this author, Sky Alexander. Let's get into who this author is. Sky Alexander is the award-winning author of more than 40 fiction and nonfiction books, including Your God Is Here. I think I have that. The Only Tarot Book You'll Ever Need, The Modern Guide to Witchcraft, The Modern Witchcraft spell book, the Modern Witchcraft Grimoire. I think I have that. The Modern Witchcraft Book of Tarot, and the Modern Witchcraft Book of Love Spells. Her stories have been published in anthologies internationally, and her work has been translated into more than a dozen languages. She divides her time between Texas and Massachusetts. So I wanted to tell you that for a reason. She divides her time between Texas and Massachusetts. So when I first started reading this book, I thought that this author was in like England or something once I read it. So I was wrong. She's in Texas and Massachusetts. She splits her time. But invite a mystical majesty. Okay, let me start with this back. Channel the magic of fairies. Invite a mystical majesty into your witchcraft practice by invoking the power and wisdom of fairies. I am running high on some mushroom coffee right now. I don't think it gives you caffeine, but it's doing something because I'm tweaking. I love this book, very accessible without all the fear mongering. Yeah, you get around thing. Bonjour, bonjour. I agree. So it is accessible. I'm gonna tell you something if you're taken aback by the concept of Wicca. She's clear about her thoughts on Wicca up front, and that she identifies, like she's starting this off from a Wiccan practice. That's how the book starts, but more about that. She says, inside you'll meet fairy families you may want to work with and learn which fairies to avoid, while gaining insight into their characteristics and behavior. You'll find out where and how they live, and discover ways to attract and interact safely with fairy helpers. Learn how to entice fairies to partner with you and how they can elevate your magical endeavors. Perform spells and rituals with fairies with an understanding of just how they can bring another dimension to these practices. And I knew a sneeze was coming. Powerful beings of semi-divine nature, the Fae can enhance your craft and enrich your self-knowledge. Get to know their world and experience through their magic with Modern Witchcraft Guide to Fairies. So here we go. So I got notes. I'm going to start with just when she talked about how to use the book, because I think this is going to be helpful. She said you're going to learn how to connect through Wiccan practices with these magical beings who fascinated and frightened our ancestors. So right off the bat, she's letting you know, don't let that discourage you if you're not somebody who, you're not into Wicca. I'm just going to say that. Don't let that be a deterrent. Don't let that, like, you stop and say, oh, well, this is more for Wicca. I'm not. So much of modern witchcraft that a lot of us practice, including myself, has a lot to do with, it ties to Wicca. So, like, for a lot of us, Wicca, whether you realize it or not, has been a framework for a lot of your modern practices. It's okay if you're doing a remix on it, if you're approaching it in a different light, but don't hear that and think, oh, this is only for Wiccans, it's not for me. That's not true. There's so much to get from this book, and there's so much to learn. She's just letting you know, that's kind of, to me, that's letting me know where she's coming from. But I wanted to point that out. Part 1 is going to discuss the long-standing links between witches and fairies. In part 1, she goes, I think, a deep dive into that connection, talking about ancestors, how they believe witches and fairies share numerous powers and stuff like that. She does a really good breakdown about that, and she talks geography as well. This is why I thought she was in England from part 1. Part 2 is an open grimoire of spells, rituals, and other activities that you can do with fairies. She gives an appendix that I thought was pretty, she said it isn't intended to be all-inclusive, but it's easy to use. And then finally, working with the Fae and integrating them into your Wiccan practice, again, pause, it's okay, can be rewarding, a rewarding experience, brings added depth and breadth to your magical endeavors. So part 1 is communing with fairies. So there's a lot here to go through. I'm going to touch on some of the things. Some of this is just from my personal notes as well. I'm getting into using my little post-it arrows here. So what I want to kind of point out, she says both witches and fairies use plant magic for healing, and a myriad of other purposes. That was what I got mostly from this thing, this chapter. She's talking a lot about, she's giving descriptions and things like that about fairies. I'm going to go over that in just a moment. But she also brings in the plant magic aspect as well, which I don't think people talk about enough. Like, we understand fairies like in the garden and the forest, nature. Um, that's why I like having plants and things. Okay, so let me back up. So I believe in house spirits, um, which is definitely tapping into the fae. I have a fae altar as well. I have multiple. I have one in my room. I'm usually doing lives from. I have it outside, out back as well. I set up a little fae village, and I actually work with gnome energy in the front of my home on my porch, and I've even created like a portal house. Or a spirit house, I think that's what they call it. But I created that, and I was just going off of intuition, and I believe messages from the house spirits when I created it. I hadn't even had anything like this book or anything like that. I've just been working off of the energy, messages and energy I'm receiving. Gnomes, yes. I keep a gnome. I keep a gnome or two. One up front, one in the back. They're guardians. And I truly work with that energy, and I believe in it. This is something, she says, if you have Celtic blood flowing in your veins as I do, you may already sense an affinity with the fairy world. Now, we're gonna talk about this for just a second, and it's gonna get a little serious, and it might be triggering. So alert. So to have Celtic blood in your system, to be, I've got gnomes in my back garden, yeah. I do have Celtic blood in my system, in Celtic blood in me, along with predominantly African. My people come from Africa, West Africa, but I also have Celtic blood. I've actually got my ancestry DNA done. No, I didn't do the 23andMe. Ancestry DNA, and a good percentage is coming from that region. So, like, if you're Welsh, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, most of the European that is in my DNA is coming from there. There's a reason for that. It has everything to do with my ancestors being raped. And I don't laugh because it's funny. I laugh because it's like, it's just facts. It's just what it is. I have come to the determination a long time ago that when I'm speaking to my ancestors, I think based off of what the information I'm getting from them, which is not usually in sentences, it's usually a feeling or a thought form pops in my head, is that there is some level of ascension. There's levels to ancestry once you passed on. So those who are in that realm and who are communicating with me that I can reach on the ancestral realm, it's not about ethnicity and race at that point. However, those people may have inhabited, I truly believe some of the ancestors I work with are also some that inhabited those areas, those lands, and are from those lands, and have ties to those lands. And I think that's why I have a connection to cottage witchery, along with my African, obviously, ancestry. But I do believe that's why I have this connection to fairies and house spirits and gnomes and all of those things. It's not coming from it's not coming from nowhere, basically. You didn't just fall out of a coconut tree. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about that. So if I seem like I'm really excited talking about this, or I'm giving you like firsthand accounts, there's a reason for that. It's not just because I'm really interested in this topic and I'm just making it all up. No, there's something deeper going on here. If you choose to want to avoid this and you're African American and you don't want to touch that part of it, because most of us are about 25%, You said I can get with that. Thank you, Sunflower Thistle. Um, it's okay either way. I You don't have to connect with that if you don't want to. But most of us are approximately 20 to 25% European, most African Americans, and it is everything to do with rape, um, unfortunately. So, like I said, I believe there's an ascension that takes place. It's not for me to know to what end and the processes and all the details to it because I'm not dead. So I don't need to know that. I'll know when it's my time. But I do believe there's something. So I'm basically saying I don't think I'm working with ancestors who rape mine. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? All right. She goes on to say, however, you'll also find information here about many other kinds of fairies from around the world. Spoiler, there's nothing in here about specific like African or anything like that. I read it, it's not. But she does do a good job of talking about all places around the world, as much as one can. She talks about Morgan Le Fay, the most famous fairy witch of all. I'm just going to read this. She says, one of the most intriguing and enigmatic characters in the Arthurian legends, Morgan Le Fay has been depicted in various ways by various writers as a powerful queen, a demon, an enchantress, a priestess, a sorcerer, a healer, a, um, a protector of old ways. Possibly she evolved from the Irish goddess of war and destiny known as the Morrigan, who used magic as her weapon in battle. By many accounts, she's a witch and spell worker who learned her craft from the wizard Merlin. She's also a fairy. Her name, Le Fay, proclaims her lineage, albeit only half. The other half is human. The captivating Morgan lived on the magical isle of Avalon, inhabited by the Fae, a realm beyond the veil, removed from the material world and hidden in mist. And she gives a lot more information about that. Those who demonize Morgan may do so because she symbolizes feminine power and challenges the organized system of male domination that has existed for centuries. I connect with Morgan Le Fay energy. There you go. She's the quintessential femme fatale, both beautiful and dangerous, a female who belongs to no man. Other detractors may object to her mixed blood, which gives her abilities beyond those of mere mortals, and which excludes her from either race. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When I read that part, it really made me think of like biracial people, like specifically half black, half white biracials. Depending on how you kind of look, I guess if you're more white passing, but if you're not, you just look racially mixed, so to speak. I do feel like that's a thing that I mean. Listen, my my daughter is not biracial, but she's been asked most of her life if she is biracial because her biological father is in mother. There's some race mixing in the bloodline. I'm just gonna say that, and it just passed down, so she looks the way she looks. But people have asked that she's been asked that since she was a little kid. Oddly enough, more so when we lived like in South Florida than any other place, that she was asked as a child more often in Florida, but specifically South Florida. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, that was the thing. We picked that up. I was like, the people there really, really were into like, what are you? Anyway. But anyway, when I read that, it made me think about that. First thing that came in my head. Fairies' magical powers. Today, most people think fairies are cute, cuddly, lovable little creatures your child would like to have as friends. But that's not the case. Fairies embody good and evil, innocence and passion, playfulness and treachery. Some are bewitchingly beautiful, others are ugly enough to shatter mirrors. Okay, so she talks about although fairies have a wide range of magical talents, some of the best known are they can make themselves invisible. That's how most of us are having interactions, by the way. We can't see them. They can change shape to become animals, birds, trees, anything they choose. They live practically forever, and they don't get wrinkles or lose their powers with passage of time. They control the weather. They can paint rainbows in the sky or whip up ferocious storms just by snapping their fingers. They have amazing healing skills, but they've also been known to conjure plagues and pestilence. They can divine the future and, in some cases, manipulate it. That's what she's saying. All right, she goes into talking about nature fairies, and there's a lot of information about that. Fairies of fate, fairy tales as more morality lessons. So, in earlier times, especially during the Victorian era, fairy tales served as morality lessons for children. Through the vehicle of story, youngsters learned about good and evil, rewards and punishment, as well as the norms, rules, and expectations of the cultures in which they lived. Um, Fairy tales like fables, we know about that, and epics that predated them, I'm glad she said that, held meanings intended for adults too. So it wasn't just for children. I mean, aren't we still learning right now? Why witches and fairies can benefit from cooperating today. And she goes into this. I thought she did a pretty good job of breaking that down. And this goes on to about the different kinds of fairies. We were just in chapter 1, by the way, with that, and I skipped over some stuff. Solitary fairies. I'm not going to go over all, but I'm going to go over some. As their name implies, solitary fairies prefer to reside alone instead of in communities, and they don't often interact with human beings. Many nature spirits fall into this category. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and like all fairies, they can change their appearance at will. Generally, they dress in simple rustic clothing, often red, brown, or gray in color. Now, why am I pointing that out specifically? You ever see something out the corner of your eye? Now, most of us, especially in witchcraft, we understand the idea of spirits and things like that. But have you ever thought you were dealing with something in the fae realm that's crossed over, and just for that split second you saw? You ever think that? Yeah, it's expansive, by the way. I'm not going to go into all of it, and also I struggle with like how to pronounce some of the names, like Wells Tilwith-Teg. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Tilwith-Teg. You see this at the top? Tilwith-Teg. Is that right? Am I saying that right? I don't even know. Yeah, and then elemental fairy. She goes into that. Earth fairies, air fairies, water fairies, fire fairies. So we're going to talk about fire fairies. These spirits live in volcanoes and in the deserts of the world. Now, this is where I connect, especially outside. But you may also find them in fireplaces, campfires, and candle flames. You might spot them in sunbeams and in lightning too. Some people who've seen these spirits describe them as resembling glowing lizards. Cult literature sometimes calls them salamanders. I have a page or two in my College Witch Book of Shadows that I created, like from another book, not the ones I'm selling. On occasion, these fairies spark fires that burn dead wood so that new growth can take place. When you do candle magic or fire rituals, invite these beings to lend their energy to your spell work. So there's that. Including the elemental fairies and rituals, as she talks about that. By the way, there are spells in here. There's spells and rituals and stuff like that. Fairy friends and foes. So she talks about flying fairies dominate the scene today, but they didn't really become popular until the Victorian era, which I don't think I've always thought too much. I don't think I thought that deep into it, but yeah. The fairies mentioned here come from Celtic mythology because the practices of many modern-day Wiccans and neo-pagans derive from Celtic traditions. They're by no means the only fae who populate the legends and lore of Britain, Ireland, and other places where the Celts have left their mark, however. Pixies, elves, leprechauns, brownies, you've heard of this. I think it's pronounced Ragochas. Marrows, Corrigans, Banshee, Doulahans, Pukas. I feel like the Puka, I'm pretty sure, yeah, Pukas. Now, why do I know about Pukas? From Supernatural. If you've watched Charmed, Supernatural, any of these shows, these things you've come across this before. You've heard these things. Um, and then animal fairies. Fairies frequently shape shift into animals and birds. They can take pretty much any form they like, even appearing as mythical creatures like unicorns and dragons. Now, I've not seen a unicorn or a dragon. I haven't seen a glimpse of that, even out the corner of my eye. Let me know if you have. I have not. But she talks about magic cats, black dogs, enchanted horses, and so forth. So, stuff like that. Um, Chapter 3 goes into caution and caveats for working with fairies. So, fairies don't hold the same values or follow the same codes of ethics that humans do. A lot of people, again, back to when she talked about the like, you think they're like soft, cuddly, like for children, and don't make that mistake. Um, I mean, you shouldn't really make that mistake about anything. You shouldn't think everything is just for you, for play, for fun, or something like that. Don't think like that. That's how you get jammed up. Romantic relationships with fae folk can be especially dicey. So I'm reading this. Romantic relationships with fae folk can be especially dicey. Many fairies are seductive and are seductive, and accounts of them mating with humans abound in folklore. Has anybody mated with a fae? If I have, it must have been in a dream realm. But seriously, has anybody mated with a fae? That's very interesting, right? Or believe they have? The do's and don'ts when dealing with fairies. If you cross them, they'll get revenge. Legends warn us not to call them by name. Doing so presumes a level of being a little too familiar, to which humans aren't entitled, in which the fairies consider disrespectful. So there you go. If you want to meet the fae, you must follow them, allow them to come to you. No, I'm a married woman. Is it considered cheating if you're having intimacy with a magical being? I don't want to say non-human because that just leads to something else. A magical being, is that still considered cheating? Do you consider it cheating? So this goes with ghosts, the fae. I guess if we're talking about this, demons, is this still considered cheating? I don't know. Fairies don't do favors for mortals out of the goodness of their hearts. We don't even know for sure if they have hearts. And Ski is laughing. Food and drink rank among the most popular offerings for fairies, right? And then she talks about fairy thieves. This has been my experience. So if a fairy sees something she wants, she'll appropriate it without, and she has appropriate in quotes, appropriate it without worrying whether the item belongs to someone else. She further goes on to say, sometimes the fae steal things for their own amusement, such as the pixies who like to borrow horses for nighttime rides, but in some instances, they may be trying to get your attention. That has been my experience. If you notice certain types of objects disappearing, consider whether there's a connection. Okay? Usually fairy thieves don't intend harm. That's what she says. There is a section on changelings. I'm not going to get into that. Get the both of you to read about that. Then she talks about getting rid of fairies. So maybe you're tired of having your jewelry disappear. Mine too, okay. Or being awakened at night by mysterious banging noises. Maybe fairies are disrupting your magical activities. She goes on a little bit more and essentially talking about sprinkling salt in the corners of your home is a popular way to protect against unwanted spirits of any kind. So on this, seriously though, one of the things about doing smoke cleanses and all that sort of stuff, in my experience and what I've learned is that, and actually I learned this from a psychic medium many years ago, many years ago. And I remember I said, well, I was talking to her about something. I was being hunted. I was being hunted in my sleep, but haunted is what I'm trying to say. She talked about sage from her experience, and I've kind of taken this as well. I was like, well, I remember telling her, oh, I saged the room that I was, that this in my bedroom, that's where I was dreaming. And she was saying, use Palo Santo instead. She suggested I use that because Palo Santo kind of picks it up a notch when we're talking spirits. But I would take it a step further. If you really like iron, salt, I would do sage and Palo Santo. Like seriously, if you didn't want any of that, if you're like, I want all of that energy gone. Now, me as someone who works with house spirits, I don't want to do these things. Um, that's why, okay, so if you still want to cleanse, and he's like, well, I don't want to cleanse everything, I just want to cleanse the unwanted energy. Your intention matters, the charm that you speak. If I was to do like a blessed water and salt and sprinkle it in the corners of my home, I still have portals. Remember I told you I have my fairy garden out back, and I have a spirit house as a portal for the Fae, and I have an altar. So they have safe ways to enter and exit in my home that it's not affected by the other things that I'm doing. So I really am getting rid of the unwanted energy, spirits, and things like that. So I take that approach. So that's why I guess your altars and altar maintenance really make sense, right? Um, because to me, I'm giving you a safe um, way to enter and to exit. If you choose, if they choose to exit, go back to the favor realm, they can. And then yeah, we're talking about where to meet fairies. So this I found is funny. This it says fairies exist. The first step to meeting fairies is to accept that they exist. So if you're watching this, you're just like, oh, I don't know about that. Well, then you're not going to see them or experience them. Because she says it. If you don't think they exist, then they don't. um, I agree with that. I agree with that. But she's talking about woodlands, lakes, and other places in nature, stone circles, crop circles, fairy rings, liminal zones, musical events. Musical events, yeah. Fairies adore music and dancing, and they're experts in both areas. People who claim to have seen fairies often describe them as dancing in forest groves and pastures, blossoming with flowers at ancient stone monuments such as Stonehenge. The Russian Rizalki are such energetic dancers that they exhaust their mortal partners sometimes to the point of death. Have you seen movies where I've read a book. I know I read a book where it was the person was. I don't remember what book this was. They were dancing with a fairy, and they just kept dancing and dancing, and they were getting exhausted. And they didn't realize how long that they were about to pass out. They were so exhausted from dancing. Um, yeah, but yeah. She says you can be sure to find fairies in the audience at concerts and other musical events. You know what? It tracks, right? It makes sense. So I'm gonna skip a little bit ahead because I want to get to the other books. She talks about favorite fairy plants, if you were curious: mushrooms, ferns, primroses, St. John's wort, foxglove, cowslip, lilies, pansy, clover, holly. And then part two, it talks about spells, rituals, and practices for working with fairies throughout the year. I mean, it's pretty good stuff here. She says, use extra care and caution when spell casting with the Fae. Remember, they don't feel emotions the way we do, nor do they subscribe to the same ethics as humans. Fairies express unconditional love instead of personal romantic love as we know it. She did have something in here. I'm just going to go, since we're talking love. Which fairies can guide you in relationships with romantic partners and friends? Which ones can help you heal from emotional disappointments or losses? Undines, spirits who inhabited the waterways of the world. The watery stuff, right? Marrows, the beautiful water spirits called Marrows reportedly come ashore to meet and marry human men, according to Irish legends. And then Corrigans, these seductive Breton, B-R-E-T-O-N, Breton fairies can show you how to enhance your attractiveness. So there you go. And then she gives magic flower water for self-love, so you can make that. This is definitely up my alley. I love this. There's a glamour spell in here. And it just goes on. And it's everything from love, protection, success, and so forth. So that's a pretty like you. There's some stuff here you can really work. Um, she has something to do for the witch's ladder as well in here. Okay, working with fairies on Sabbaths and holidays. So I found this interesting. She does list at least four different ones. Elemental fairies. She said witches associate the four elements with the four seasons of the year. The element of air relates to spring and fire, summer, water, autumn, earth to winter. You may want to consider these connections when working with elemental fairies at different time of the year. And she lists some other things there as well. So that's pretty much it. I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is the Modern Witchcraft Guide to Fairies, your complete guide to the magic of the Fae. I thought it was pretty comprehensive, and it wasn't boring, and it didn't talk down. I don't think she got so fantastical that it's hard to kind of consume it either. I'm glad I got it. I know I talked about this in a live probably some time ago, and I think the book came out in like 22, 23, 2021, excuse me. I know that I bought it and I did a live and it was like in a haul or something like that. And I may have skimmed it, but I actually wanted to read it finally. Don't judge me. I have a to be read list that is crazy. I have not read everything, but this is what I do. I eventually get to it. I'm not wasteful. Anyway, so this is that one. So on that note, we're going to talk about the Green Witch's Garden, which to me these books transition perfectly. I've read all of these books. This one, like I said, I skimmed, so I kind of read like the first couple chapters or something like that, so it was really finishing it up. I went back and just skimmed those and then got deep into it. Here's all the notes. um, I had this one for a while, skimmed it as well. I know I talked about this in a haul and I had been meaning to get back to it. Well, I got back to it. The Green Witch's Garden, your complete guide to creating and cultivating a magical garden space. Remember, this is for all my green witches. This is your time. The Green Witch's Garden is a site of deep, rich, and meaningful connections with the earth, the source of the Green Witch's power. In Erin Murphy Hiscox, which you probably read some of her books before, The Green Witch's Garden, you'll learn how to work closely with nature and reap your own magical harvest. And it just goes on from there. I'm not going to read too much in the back because it's not long, but it's pretty long. So this was actually also 2021. Don't judge me. So the book is broken up. She talks about the green witchcraft in the garden, magical goals for the garden, kinds of witch gardens, plant your witch's garden, prepare your sacred space, choose what to plant, magic for healthy garden, make magic with your harvest, and practice witchcraft in the garden. Um, she says, I like when in the section of, first of all, let's talk about the illustrations in the book. This one didn't have anything. This one has beautiful illustrations, absolutely beautiful. So it's pretty, and you want that, right? She says, first of all, this can't be a step-by-step guide. Growing zones, climates, geological composition all vary widely across the world. This is going to be a reference book. It's not something, it comes from you and your connection to your local energies. Work with your land, not against it. Perfect for me. I am still trying to figure out an outdoor garden situation here. Even the cactus that I had died, that I had out back, I am still trying to figure it out. This is something very different. We are already in the triple digits. I think today, for instance, let me see the temperature today. Are we getting? Oh, it's only in the 90s. It might feel like it, but we're getting very high. So the high today is 99 degrees, if that makes any. And it's only 99. Again, I cannot express to you that's a real statement living here. You say, oh, it's only 99. Like it's not unbearable. But it's damn. Wait, hold on. I'm paying attention. It's gonna be in the 90s. Okay, it's just hot. Just know it's just freaking hot here. Anyway. Gardening demonstrates to us that gentle care matters, even if only for a few moments every day. I totally agree. She doesn't just talk about outdoor gardening. She talks about, even if you are container gardening, she talks about house plants, indoor gardening, windowsill gardening. If you don't think this is for you and you're kind of interested in green witchery, or you're a witch and you want to kind of incorporate gardening and things like that, I think it's still worth getting this book. It's a reference book. I'm glad I got it. Yeah, it's still worth having it. She said, if you, I like what she says, wait, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it does require a few moments from day to day, with occasional longer, more involved activity. Prime example. Most of the time, I'm just watering my plants, right? It's not, I talk and talk to them, but I'm mostly watering my plants. I always come over, I'm like, you're doing so well. Look at you. This is me this morning, actually, to my seeds that I planted. And I'm like, oh, you're doing so well. I'm so proud of you. Look at you. And I'm touching the leaves and I just gently stroke. And I'm like, oh, you're such a good plant. Look at you. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with you. This is me talking to the plants. This is how I talk to them. Um, if you ignore your plants too long, you'll have a lot of work to do to bring them back to vibrant life. Very true. Interacting with green growing things is a learning experience. I also find it deeply fulfilling. It is very much a part of my cottage witchery practice. I find this incredibly fulfilling. Everything from seed to growing to maintenance, um, to harvesting as well. I love all of the process. And I'm still learning. I mean, there are some people. I guess there's some people out there who kind of know everything, or they think they do. I don't think you can. I mean, you know your local lands. You don't know everything. Like, if you've always been in the Pacific Northwest, how do you know in the desert? You know what I mean? So there's always something to learn at some point. Working with a garden also offers you a chance to be mindful. I agree. These are just perks. Sunlight stimulates the production of vitamin D, which aids in the production of neurotransmitter regulators and thus helps stabilize moods. Totally agree. Low levels of vitamin D may be associated with depression and anxiety. I cannot overstate that. That is very true. Managing your own garden also allows you the opportunity to influence and direct the energy development of specific plants. I also agree with that. So she's going on in the beginning, just talking about kind of the spiritual aspects. Make it personal. Talking to plants is a cliche, but there's truth behind it. It is. There's been experiments done. It's a real thing, y'all. It really does help to talk to your plant babies. How will you use your garden? So she's going to give a breakdown. There's information you might find to be maybe not useful, especially if you're not plotting out something on land, digging up the land or anything. But I still think it's worth, even if you're just wanting to do windowsill gardening, or just have a couple house plants by a sunny window. First step, define your intentions. Next, outline your goals, then write out your vision in detail. And talks about zones and soils. There's like real gardening information in here, and she's even talking about like edible flowers. I love that, by the way. If you didn't know, borage, clover, honeysuckle, impatiens, violets, roses, and there's more going on. Kinds of witch gardens. I love the way this looks so bad. You said, I've been making more of an effort to bring plants into my home. My tomatoes are starting to sprout. Yay! First of all, it's like it's when you see it grow, when you see the growth, it is really exciting. Especially it's because it's you kind of maintaining and nurturing, and when you see that, that is such a satisfying feeling. I love taking care of plants. I love it. This dress surprise. Oh my goodness. Anyway, basic components of a green witch garden. At its heart, your green witch garden should provide you with two things: the opportunity to be hands-on with natural cycles. Sorry, let me calm my phone down. The opportunity to be hands-on with the natural cycle, the energy to contribute to filling your daily needs and your magic. I love that. And you're probably getting that, right? Um, then she gets into astrological gardens. Um, I thought that was, I highlighted this because I'm going to come back to this for myself, but she's giving beautiful illustrations in here of an astrological garden. Isn't that pretty? Like the idea of setting that up. Um, Using astrology to time gardening is in here as well. I'm really impressed with that. Plants associated with the moon phases. So this is a moon garden. I love this so much. Um, and then there's a list here, a garden to enjoy at night. The following list suggests a selection of night blooming plants that you can include in your moon garden. Maybe I need to look into this. Anyway, so she lists a bunch of plants in here. I love that. This is an elemental garden. I just wanted to show you guys the illustrations. It's so pretty. I love the book. Just I like how things are laid out. The Plant Your Witch's Garden, indoor, outdoors, what and where. If you don't have an outdoor space, or even if you do and you want to bring gardening indoors, you have plenty of options. Common house plants. We tend to not think of house plants as magical. I do. As witches, we're keenly aware that everything impacts and affects the energy in our living space, and many of us already use plants in some way to influence and shape the feeling in a room or rooms. Plants, if on a surface, if you were to come in, it just makes my home feel more homey. Plants makes it looks like a person lives in your home. Otherwise, it just it looks like a showroom, right? Especially if it's like really clean and everything's neat and organized and put away. It gives the space personality in my, yeah, it gives it personality. But she's going to give you a list of house plants as well in here, indoor house plants. I love seeing this, by the way. I love seeing this amount of detail and like care instructions and details and how many species and all that of the different plants. So she's, I like I like that she does this. Anyway, she talks about indoor growing racks, multiple mini garden areas, and alternative indoor gardens like terrariums. It's on my to-do. Does anybody have a terrarium? Have you done that? It's on my to-do. And first of all, reading this week, once it's in my head, now the universe is showing me things. I saw somebody create one, a YouTube. She created like everything from scratch, the vessel, the glass, all that. She like recycled something, made something and called it a terrarium. Anyway, I'm so into this right now. I want to really try. So she gives you the closed and the open terrarium ideas, if you didn't know. Aquatic plants. I'm kind of low-key interested in this as well. She's talking about taking like a fish tank like this and you fill it up with plants. I think that's so cool to do that, right? Succulents, I'm already on it. She talks about succulents, cacti. Oddly enough, to be in a desert and still struggle with cacti, don't ask. I killed her. I had two. Then she talked about something about air plants, which maybe I didn't fully comprehend before. Air plants don't need soil. Do you guys know about air plants? Are you serious right now? I'm getting phone call after phone call. They are different people, by the way. What are you saying? Uh, I have experience with aquatic plants, so I'm already trying to figure out where I can put a tank. Oh my gosh, right? I want to use that. I want to get into that. I already see a space I can do it too. Oh, and Lisa is on my list of things to do. Um, she goes on about that. She talks about winter gardening. Da 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 da. I'm glad I took the time. Honestly, doing this channel and like doing witchy review really. I get to read and I want to read and I get to get educated on this stuff. Now, here's the fun part. Create your garden journal. I highlighted a lot here. At the bare minimum, keep a garden journal and a tracker style notebook. Write down when you plant things, when you see shoots, when things droop or look unhappy. Note down the days you watered or trimmed back, fertilized, or used composting. Keeping track will help you take the best care of your plants that you can. So that's just like that part. She goes in further detail about that, about taking photos. If you're more adept at like drawing or sketches, do that of your plants. She even suggests a binder. A binder allows you to add materials like plant tags and information sheets handed out with the plants you buy. Um, I agree with that. Probably that probably helps even more because like I mean, quite frankly, you can like with a binder, it's so easy. You might have pockets and stuff like that. You can add additional things to it. So I kind of get with that. But if you in a binder, it could be disc. It doesn't have to be rings. However, I will say this because we're going to talk about the next book, and I'm going to the book of houseplant care. You can glue pages on top as well. You can glue photos on top of something. You can tuck in other pages, like just use a strip of glue and kind of tuck it into the spine. So there's ways you can get around that if you don't have rings or the disc or something like that. But she is talking about it. There is a project for pressing your samples, like flowers and stuff like that. She gives you that. There's just so much to this book. I was really impressed once I allowed myself to actually read it thoroughly. I was really impressed with the book. Um, and then she goes on and talk about even more magical than working magic with supplies sourced from your garden is working magic in the garden itself. Um, I like this section. I will say this. Have you ever, even if it's just house plants, do you know you can pull their energy for a spell? I do that. I've done that, especially in my craft room. I will definitely I have plants in there, and I feel like they're hardy. My avocado aloe plant is perfect for that. I feel like that aloe plant is hardy enough for me to pull essence and energy from it. I like a hardier plant to do that. I wouldn't do that with something I consider more delicate. I don't want to trust. I don't trust it. Anyway, there's a lot in here. Drawing magical energy from the garden itself, and it just goes on. She is reinforcing a lot about using, excuse me, using a journal. I'm going to tell you that right now because you kind of need to. In a conclusion, your garden should be a place of spiritual nourishment. Even the work and maintenance can be a spiritual undertaking, allowing you to focus on the physical activity without judgment. I totally agree. I think this is good to add to your witchy library. Now, the Green Witch's Grimoire. I've had this for a minute. I already had notes and references. I was using this a while back. This was published in 2020, so I've had this for a minute. This is a good one. The thing I just want to point out is there is so much to this book than what you think. The whole point is your complete guide to creating your own book of natural magic. So this is a guide on how to set up your own book of shadows. So mind you, if you have trouble starting and you read books like this, like Once Upon a Time I did, and other similar books like this to help you start a grimoire, and you don't, it still feels overwhelming. I've created something. This one, the Hoodoo Grimoire and the Hearth Witch Grimoire are Book of Shadows as well, where I give you a lot of upfront information so you can just start using it. And you don't have to stare at a blank piece of paper and not know how to move forward. But I still think it's worth getting books like this to help you to continue to know, okay, so what else am I going to add to this book? To me, reading books like this are also super helpful. Building a grimoire is a valuable practice that can enhance your understanding of your personal practice and development. Your grimoire can and will become a magical tool in its own right. It can't help but become one through your repeated use and interfacing with it. And I totally agree. Um, I want that. I want that in my practice. I don't want to just create books and they sit on the shelves. And if I want to do a flip through just to entertain myself, that's the purpose. I want my books to be useful. I want to have reference information that I can easily go back to, especially at the stage of my life where, hormonally speaking, you know, I could be talking and lose my point in the middle of making a point. I need I need to be looking at my books. I need to be able to go back to them and be able to reference and understand and not try to keep it all in my head. So that is why I'm a big fan of this book alone, because it's reinforcing and encouraging you to create your own book shadows. But anyway, or grimoires. Um, it's a lot of detail. I'm just going to tell you that. There's even, I like that she has recipes in here as well. For instance, making herbal paper. I love this. If you can create your own herb paper. Um, there's so many different things in here. Finding the perfect ink and pens, making a quill pen. She gives you instructions on how to do that. Look, including like the making a quill pen. I love this. Um, this was a note that I had here from before. Moon energy information. Common reference information in grimoires. Yeah, that sort of stuff, which you'll find in my books, by the way. Solar information, elements and quarters, common tools and associations, all sorts of stuff. Nature-based art, leaf printing activity. Remember doing that like when we were in elementary school? Well, you can do it again. There's journaling prompts. She gives you examples, for instance, like a ritual record, if you needed to know how to do that. She gives you a template and then an example of what it's like to fill it in. So this is a really comprehensive book. Definitely more, and there's correspondence information in the back, by the way, herbs and plants, so it gives you that. Pretty detailed, without being too much. It's less than 300 pages. It's not overkill, but you can really use this. Yeah, you can really connect with this. Even if you already have a book, even if you purchased one of my books, and like I said, you were trying to figure out what else do I want to add, where else do I want to go. This is a good one. One thing I just want to point out: write a ritual to honor death. In a Green Witch's arsenal, well, first of all, in witchcraft, but I think when you're working, especially with natural cycles, death is a part of it, right? Write your rituals. I talked about that myself. You want to write rituals. You want to do that. You want to acknowledge death, the transition. And death is not our final form. I don't think it's the final form for living creatures. It's just a transition. And be open to that concept even when you're talking about plant life. Now, this is the Green Witch's Book of Houseplant Care, a journal to record all the details of indoor plant care. Now, I purchased this a while ago, 2021. Never used it. The reason is because I already had something else. That's why. I was using a Happy Planner at the time, and they had like something specific to like gardening and plants and stuff like that. So I was using that, and I posted pictures, but I'm going to start using this. So if you were curious, and all the links are in the description, I'm an Amazon affiliate. So if you purchase anything, I give a small coin, use my links. But this is what it looks like in the inside. You write your plant name and location, I guess the location of where it is, including like in your home. Did I skip something that looks like something flashed on the screen, or was it just my eyes playing tricks on me? Yes, my eyes playing tricks on me. Okay. Then you have that. Then houseplant inventory. So where is it at in your home? And then look, it gives you the template of like the plant name, botanical name, date, purchase, price, purchase location, water needed, light needed, like all the details. Like, you know how you get those little things that in the plant to tell you how to take care of it. Like, you can translate that here, basically. And then the watering dates. So for those of us, who want this level of detail, this is for you. You can sketch or place a photo here of the plant, growth chart, date, height here. Pest problems and notes go here. So that's all this is. Next page for the next thing. It's pretty simple, not too much. I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing. I honestly forgot I owned it. I'll be honest with you. I forgot. I was using the Happy Planner for a while, and then I would just jot things down in a notebook. In the meantime, I started a notebook, a binder, and I realized I have this and I should be using this because I paid for it and I didn't use it. And it's brand spanking new. Look at it. Never cracked open. This spine is uncracked. So listen, there's just full vulnerability here. Sometimes we don't get to use our things, or for whatever reason, you get too much stuff. What a problem to have. First world problems. I have so many books, so many things that I didn't have time to actually remember that I purchased them and used them. But I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to start using it. That won't be an excuse anymore. But these are the books that we went over. Again, links are in the description. For all my green witches, this is my ode to you. If you're interested in any of this, like I said, the links are in the description. Those are Amazon links because that's where I got them from. If you can source them someplace else, feel free. But if you're willing to do that, again, use my links because I'm an Amazon affiliate. The little coins help. And it's little, but it helps. It adds up. All right. So that is all. I appreciate everybody for chatting with me, for being here today. If green witchery is really not your bag, if that's not your style, I encourage you to kind of dip into it just a little bit. And if you are a practitioner of sorts, I don't know how you're not in touch with nature. It's not about growing a garden per se. It's not about having a green thumb. I think it's more about just being in the presence of nature. And for some of us, the accessible version of that, especially for those of us who live in cities, or even honestly to some degree we live in suburbs, a lot of things are treated with chemicals around you, especially if it's really nice suburban area. It looks pretty, but everything is like laced with chemicals. And it's hard to really get that aspect of nature, that's not, pesticides and all that sort of stuff, or chemically painted green, because they do that here in Arizona. They put some kind of spray and make things look green. An accessible way of being every day in connection with nature is like having a house plant. So I encourage you, get a succulent, if nothing else. That's going to be super helpful to you. I know that I plan on doing a video soon on my Magical Lifestyle of the Cottage Witch channel, where I'm going to be giving sort of a tour of my plant babies and my magical uses for them and purpose and all that sort of stuff. So I'll be doing something like that soon. So if you're interested, and if you didn't know, I have another channel called Magical Lifestyle of the Cottage Witch. The link's in the description. Okay, so I am done. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, share, hit the join button to join Leap Taken membership here on YouTube. It's like Patreon, super helpful, and there are wonderful perks with that. The books, links are in the description. The book Shadows for the Love Witch, Hoodoo Grimoire, and the book of Shadows for the Hearth Witch are now available at leaptaken.com. They go out immediately, so as soon as you place that order, there is not a lot of lag time. They get shipped almost immediately, as well as in the TikTok shop and definitely with Amazon. And there's tracking and all that. Oh, why am I forgetting this? When you go to leaptaken.com and you make a purchase, you get free shipping. All right, so I'm done. Thank you all.